Stop for a moment. Look at your life right now, not the version you show people, but the one you feel when you are alone. The dreams that once burned inside you now feel distant. The confidence you once had now flickers like a weak candle in the wind. And every time you try to change your life, something strange happens. For a few hours, maybe a few days, you feel powerful, you feel aligned, you feel certain, you feel like the reality you want is already yours. And then suddenly, doubt enters, a single thought, a small fear, a quiet whisper in your mind saying, "What if this doesn't work?" And in that moment, everything collapses, the powerful stake you were holding disappears, the certainty fades, the vision becomes blurry, and you fall back into the same old version of yourself, again and again and again. This is the silent struggle almost nobody talks about, because the truth is, most people don't fail because they can't imagine a better life. They fail because they cannot stay in the state of the person who already has it. They visit the state, but they don't live there, and that changes everything. Neville Goddard once said something that most people hear, but very few truly understand. Your imagination is not pretending, it is creation. The moment you imagine something with feeling, you have entered a state of consciousness. And that state contains an entire reality. But here is the secret that changes everything. The problem is not entering the state. The problem is remaining there. Because the world you see around you is designed to pull you out of it. Your bank account tries to pull you out. Your past tries to pull you out. Other people's opinions try to pull you out. Even your own mind tries to drag you back to the old identity. And this is why so many people feel frustrated with manifestation. They imagine once, they feel inspired once, they visualize for a few minutes, and then spend the rest of the day thinking like their old self. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every hour to check if it's growing. Of course, nothing happens. But what if I told you something that might completely change the way you approach this? What if the reason your reality hasn't changed yet has nothing to do with the strength of your imagination and everything to do with your ability to remain loyal to a state? Think about this carefully. Every version of you already exists as a state of consciousness. The successful version of you, the confident version of you, the loved version of you. These are not distant possibilities, they are states. And according to Neville Goddard, you are always occupying one. Right now, at this very moment, you are living inside a state with its own emotions, a state with its own reactions. And the world you experience is simply the mirror of that state. This means something incredibly powerful. If you change the state you occupy, the mirror must change. Not maybe, not sometimes. It must, because reality has no choice but to reflect the consciousness you are living in. But here is where things become fascinating. Most people believe that changing their life requires changing circumstances first. They say, I will feel confident when I succeed. I will feel worthy when someone loves me. I will feel secure when I have money. But Neville completely reversed this idea. He said the external world is not the cause. It is the effect. The true cause is the state you accept as yourself. So if you want a different life, you must first become the version of yourself who already lives in that reality. Not physically, internally. You must think from it, feel from it, react from it, see the world from it. And this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves, because they step into the desired state, but they don't stay there long enough for it to solidify into reality. They visit the mansion, but keep running back to the old house. Imagine this. A person who wants to become wealthy spends 10 minutes visualizing success. They see the money, they feel the excitement. For a moment, they are in the state of abundance. But then the day begins. They check their bank account. They complain about bills. They worry about the future. They think thoughts like, I can't afford this. Money is hard to make. Nothing ever works for me. Without realizing it, they have left the state and returned to the old one. And because consciousness creates reality, the old state keeps producing the same life. This is why Neville often said something that sounds simple, but is actually one of the deepest truths he ever taught. He said, your dominant state of consciousness is what manifests, not the state you visit occasionally, not the state you imagine once at night, the state you live in most of the time. That is the one creating your reality. And this raises an important question. If the secret is staying in the desired state, why is it so difficult? Why do people keep slipping back into the old identity? The answer lies in something Neville called states within states. Your current identity is not just one belief, it is an entire psychological structure built over years. Habits of thought, emotional patterns, automatic reactions, stories you tell yourself. All of these form the state you are currently occupying, and that state has momentum. So when you try to move into a new state, the old one fights back. It whispers familiar thoughts. It triggers old emotions. It reminds you of past failures, not because it is true, but because it is familiar. The human mind is addicted to familiarity, even if that familiarity is painful. And this is why staying in your desired state requires something deeper than motivation. It requires identity transformation. You must become someone who naturally occupies that state. Someone for whom that reality feels normal, natural, obvious. Neville described this process as living in the end, not hoping for the end, not wishing for it, living as if it is already complete. But here is the subtle detail that most people miss. Living in the end does not mean pretending. It means shifting the inner conversation you constantly have with yourself. Because your inner conversations reveal the state you are truly living in. Listen carefully to your thoughts during the day. What do you say to yourself when something goes wrong? What do you assume about your future? What do you believe about your worth? Those quiet internal sentences are not random. They are the voice of your current state. And if those sentences belong to the old version of you, then that is the state you are still living in, no matter how many times you visualize. But imagine something different. Imagine waking up tomorrow and your mind automatically thinks like the person who already has everything you desire. No doubt, no hesitation. Just quiet certainty. You speak differently. You react differently. Even when challenges appear, you remain calm. Because the person you have become knows something the old version never understood. They know that reality is not something they chase. It is something they generate from within. This is the power of remaining in the desired state. But there is a hidden layer to this teaching that Neville rarely explained directly. A layer that determines whether someone can hold the state or keeps falling out of it. Because the moment you try to remain in a new state, something unusual begins to happen. Your reality starts testing you. Old circumstances appear. Unexpected problems arise. People behave in ways that seem to contradict your desire. And in those moments, most people panic. They think the process isn't working. They assume the manifestation failed. So they abandon the state. They return to worry. They return to fear. And the old reality reasserts itself. But what if those moments are not failures at all? What if they are something else entirely? What if they are the final resistance of the old state, trying to pull you back before it disappears forever? Neville hinted at this many times. He said that when you enter a new state, the old state begins to die. And like anything that is dying, it makes one last attempt to survive. This is why the period between imagination and manifestation can feel confusing. Your inner world says the desire is done, but the outer world still owls the past. And this is the exact moment where your ability to remain in the state determines everything. Because if you can hold the state despite appearances, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Reality starts rearranging itself. People change. Opportunities appear. Circumstances shift in ways that seem almost impossible. But none of this happens instantly. It happens through a process Neville called the bridge of incidents, a series of events that gradually moves you from your current reality to the one you imagined. And here is the part most people never realize. While this bridge is forming, your job is not to control the events. Your job is only one thing: to remain faithful to the state, to keep thinking from the end, feeling from the end, identifying with the version of you who already has the desire, even when the world temporarily looks the same. And this is where the true mastery of Neville's teaching begins. Because staying in the desired state is not about forcing positive thoughts. It is about something far more powerful. It is about becoming so familiar with the new identity that leaving it starts to feel unnatural, almost impossible. And once that happens, the transformation becomes inevitable. But there is a specific mental shift that allows someone to hold their desired state effortlessly. A shift that separates those who manifest occasionally from those who seem to reshape reality almost at will. And the strange part is, most people overlook this shift completely because it hides inside one simple question that almost nobody asks themselves. And once you understand this question, you begin to see why people keep leaving their desired state without even realizing it. But to see it clearly, you first need to understand something Neville discovered about the nature of consciousness that completely changes whole. W states actually work, because once you see it, you can never unsee it again. Neville discovered something about consciousness that sounds simple at first, but it changes everything about how you experience reality. You are not trying to create a new state. You are always selecting one. Right now, in this exact moment. The version of you who doubts is a state. The version of you who worries about the future is a state. The version of you who feels powerful, calm, certain, and fulfilled is also a state. And every second of your life, you are choosing which one to occupy, not with effort, but with attention. Your attention is the doorway to every state. Where your attention goes, your identity follows. And where your identity goes, reality begins to organize itself around it. This is why Neville insisted that imagination is not a tool you occasionally use. It is the very structure of reality itself. Everything begins there. Every invention, every success, every relationship, every transformation first existed as an imaginal act in someone's mind. But Neville went even further. He said, imagination is not just the beginning of creation. Imagination is God within you, the creative power that shapes the entire world. And the moment you truly understand this, something shifts inside you. You stop begging life to change. You stop waiting for permission from circumstances. You stop asking the world if your dream is possible. Because you realize something that most people spend their entire lives never discovering. The world is not deciding your future. Your consciousness is. And once that realization settles into your bones, staying in the desired state becomes less about discipline and more about identity. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone trying to fix their life, but as someone who is constantly selecting why, SH version of reality to experience. Imagine standing in a room filled with thousands of doors. Behind each door is a different version of your life. A door where you are confident, a door where you are wealthy, a door where you are loved, a door where you are respected, a door where you wake up every morning feeling aligned with your purpose. All of these realities exist as states, and the key to each door is the feeling of already being that person, not wishing to be them, being them. Neville called this the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is the emotional signature of the state you want to occupy. When you feel it, even briefly, you have stepped through the door But the true mastery of manifestation begins when you stop stepping in and out and decide to stay there. And this is where the transformation begins. Because once you remain in that state long enough, your mind starts accepting it as natural. At first, it feels unfamiliar. Your old identity keeps whispering doubts. But slowly, something changes. Your thoughts begin to shift automatically. Your reactions become different. You start responding to life the way the new version of you would respond. And without even noticing, the state begins to stabilize. This is the moment when imagination stops feeling like a technique and becomes your new reality. But Neville didn't just teach philosophy, he gave very specific methods to help people enter and remain in these states. One of the most powerful methods he taught is something incredibly simple, yet unbelievably profound. He called it the imaginal scene. Instead of imagining the entire journey toward your desire, you create a single short scene that implies your wish has already been fulfilled. A moment that would naturally happen after your desire becomes reality. For example, if your desire is financial freedom, I imagine a close friend congratulating you. You hear their voice clearly, you see the smile on their face, you feel the warmth of the moment, you feel the quiet pride within you, and most importantly, you feel the naturalness of it. Not excitement like something new just happened, but calm certainty as if this is simply who you are now. Then you repeat that scene gently in your imagination, over and over, especially at night when your mind is relaxed and receptive. Neville called this state SATS, the state akin to sleep, a moment where your conscious mind becomes quiet and your imagination becomes vivid. In that moment, the imaginal scene sinks deeper into your subconscious, and your subconscious is the soil where reality begins to grow. But here is the part people often misunderstand. The purpose of the scene is not to force the manifestation. Its purpose is to change your state of consciousness. The moment the scene feels real, you have already entered the new state. And once you are in that state, your only task is to remain loyal to it. Throughout the day, you begin asking yourself a powerful question. Not when will my desire arrive, but something much more transformative. You ask, how would the version of me who already has this think right now? How would they react to this situation? How would they speak? How would they walk into a room? How would they view this problem? And slowly, gently, you start aligning your thoughts with that identity. Not perfectly, but consistently. And something extraordinary begins to happen. You notice your old reactions fading. Situations that once triggered fear now trigger calm. Moments that once created doubt now create curiosity. Because the person you are becoming knows something deeply. They know that circumstances are not permanent. They are reflections, mirrors, and mirrors only change when the one looking into them changes first. Neville often told a story that illustrates this beautifully. He spoke about a woman who desperately wanted a new life. Her circumstances seemed impossible to escape. Her environment was discouraging. Her finances were limited. Her future looked uncertain. But Neville gave her one instruction. Every night, before falling asleep, imagine the feeling of the life you desire. Not the struggle, not the process, the end. She imagined living in a beautiful home. She imagined waking up peacefully. She imagined feeling secure. Night after night, she repeated the imaginal act, and during the day, she refused to return to the old identity, even when circumstances seemed unchanged. Weeks passed, then something unexpected happened. A series of events unfolded that she never could have planned. Opportunities appeared, connections formed, and within a short period of time, the exact life she imagined began materializing around her. But when people heard the story, they focused on the outcome, the house, the opportunities, the external change. Neville focused on something different. He said the real miracle happened long before the circumstances changed. The miracle happened the moment she accepted the new state as herself. Everything else simply followed. And this is the realization that changes everything. Manifestation is not about forcing the world to give you something. It is about becoming someone internally, until reality has no choice but to reflect that identity. This is why staying in the desired state is the ultimate secret, because the longer you remain there, the less power the old version of you has. Eventually, the old identity dissolves, its thoughts lose their authority, its fears lose their voice, and the new state becomes your natural home. Imagine waking up every morning already feeling aligned with your future, not chasing it, not hoping for it, but quietly knowing it is unfolding. Imagine walking through challenges without panic, because you understand that circumstances are temporary reflections. Imagine carrying an inner certainty that nothing in the outer world can shake. That is the power Neville was trying to show humanity. The power of imagination. The power of selecting the state that defines your reality. And once you truly understand this, something beautiful happens. You stop reacting to life, you start creating it. Moment by moment, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. You realize that the desired state is not somewhere you must reach in the future. It is a state you can occupy right now, this very second. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself something honestly. Who would you be if your dream had already come true? What would you feel right now? What thoughts would run through your mind? How would you see yourself? That version of you is not imaginary. It is a state of consciousness waiting for you to step into it. And the moment you do, your world begins to change in ways that seem almost mysterious. But the mystery disappears once you understand the truth, Neville. Le spent his life teaching. You are not separate from the power that creates reality. You are that power. Your imagination is not a fantasy. It is the blueprint of the world you are about to experience. So choose your state carefully. Protect it. Nurture it. Return to it whenever doubt appears. Because the person who learns to remain in their desired state becomes someone the world cannot stop. Not because they control circumstances, but because they understand that the outer world will always rearrange itself to reflect the inner world they have chosen to live in. And once you begin living from that truth, your life no longer feels like something that is happening to you. It feels like something unfolding through you, quietly, powerfully, inevitably. So tonight, when the world becomes silent, close your eyes. Step into the version of yourself who already has the life you desire. Feel their calm, feel their certainty, feel their quiet confidence, and remain there. Because the state you choose to live in today is the reality you will wake up inside tomorrow.